Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espy.
Well, first, my good evening. It's just after 5 p.m. on Monday, so that means it's time to get you up to speed with all the latest news from the Isle of Man. First up tonight, there'll be more from Manx Care as the Chief Executive responds to an MHK's take on the recently announced cuts. Plus, there's news about a pay offer for Manx Care employees. We'll have all the details coming your way about that very shortly. And we're just weeks away from a heartwarming moment. A young Manx man is getting ready to move into his specially adapted home. Could you lend a hand with those last finishing touches? Stay tuned for how you can help. We'll also keep one eye on the roads and travel as well. And as ever, if you'd like to get in touch, you can text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. First, let's join Lewis for a roundup of today's main news headlines.
Faster Mai, the chief executive of Manx Care, says she's disappointed to hear an MHK describe its recently announced cuts as holding a gun to the head of government. Douglas South member Claire Christian made the remarks after a number of changes to health services were announced last week. The Public Services Commission has issued a new revised pay offer following earlier rejections by both unions representing government workers. The offer remains a 3-year deal, which has been a contentious issue for both Unite and Prospect, who claim their input is being ignored. Meanwhile, Manx Radio understands Manx Care has issued a 4% pay offer for the current financial year. Employees who have left the health service since the 1st of April 2024 will not be eligible for the pay award, which remains consistent with previous offers. And on the roads, temporary lights that were in place on South Quay in Douglas today have been removed. They were in place on the Bridge Road roundabout whilst line painting took place. In the latest international news, the father of Sarah Sharif says he legally punished her and she died. A court has heard the 10-year-old was found with dozens of injuries. The defendants, Sarah's father, stepmother and uncle, deny her murder. At least 18 people have been killed in an Israeli strike on I-2 in North Lebanon, according to the Red Cross. It's reported to be the first time the region has been hit. And a former boss of Google says Sir Keir Starmer will fail to meet his 2030 clean energy ambitions unless he cuts UK red tape. The UK Prime Minister's promised to rip up regulation if it slows economic growth. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with the news at 6 o'clock.
Thanks very much, Lewis. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. Sunny or clear spells this evening and to start tonight, but then that cloud will increase by the end of the night. Moderate southeast winds will freshen. Minimum temperatures will be around 9. And then tomorrow it'll be cloudy and that cloud will be thick enough to produce a few outbreaks of drizzle at times. Maybe take your brolly with you. Moderate to fresh southeast winds and a maximum temperature of 15. Sunset this evening will be at 6:22. Sunrise tomorrow morning, 7:47.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
Cannell's Agricultural Supplies have been serving the good folk of the North for over 30 years, supplying homegrown wheats, whole and rolled oats, working clothing, fencing, animal feeds, parts, tools and emergency supplies. Call Julia on 880206 or find Cannell's on Facebook.
Patricia Wild Opticians is celebrating over 30 years of friendly, caring service in Farm Hill and Ramsey. Visit us for professional eye care with stress-free parking. Phone Patricia Wild Opticians on 813 977.
For over 25 years, Langness Maintenance Services have been the block paving specialists, including property maintenance, fencing and landscaping. Fast, reliable and competitive. For a free no-obligation quote, call Paddy on 49667. Langness Maintenance Services, 49667.
One architectural design company has particular expertise in achieving planning approval for a wide variety of projects, from landmark buildings to spectacular homes. Talk to the experts at Ellis Brown and get your project off the ground. For excellence in design, search Ellis Brown.
I'm quite disappointed when I hear comments like that because I think the language is really
We'll hear from Theresa Cope in just a moment. I'm disappointed when that happens. It is 4.5 minutes past 5 and you're listening to Update here on Manx Radio. And as we just heard in the news headlines, the Public Services Commission has issued a new revised pay offer. Now, this follows previous rejections by both unions representing public service workers. To talk about this a little bit more, I'm joined by Christian Jones. And Christian, am I right in saying this is the third offer now?
Yeah, the third offer. We had the initial one that was almost immediately rejected. Then a revised pay offer that was made in July. That was also rejected. And now we've got a new one.
So what can you tell us then? What is in this offer?
So the latest offer is 4% this financial year, then 2.5% the next year, and then 2% the following year. So it becomes less over time, and that has been a sticking point for the unions Prospect and Unite. They have both previously described the offers as disgraceful and unacceptable. I am told that if the 4% offer was put on the table and it was standalone and didn't include this 3-year deal, then it would be likely to be accepted. And that is probably the type of figure that they're looking for. They want inflation plus 2%.
So let me get this right. What you're saying is 4% would be seen as a reasonable increase, but naturally this isn't a standalone year. So do we know anything else that's been offered to maybe, I don't know, try and sugarcoat this offer?
Well, employees that have been working in the public service for 10 years or more will have their annual leave allowance increased from 28 days to 30 days. That is more or less it, though. This financial year is being increased by 0.75% on the last offer, but the next two pay awards remain the same as what they were. It is fairly likely that if inflation continues doing what it's doing, in the third year, that'll be a below inflation pay award, which the unions will naturally say erodes their members' real terms pay, and no doubt they would ask that to be made up in future pay offers. The Public Services Commission has always said that this they have to exercise financial restraint, so it also argues that the public sector is outstripping the private sector. That is open to debate, though, because of the way it sets out the earnings survey. We have contacted the PSC for comment, but given the chair's comments when she last appeared on Manx Radio, it may be wishful thinking for us to assume we'll be speaking to her anytime soon. We will naturally keep pushing for comments, though, and we are expecting to speak to Prospect tomorrow, so of course we'll bring you more when we have it.
Thank you very much indeed, Christian. So do expect to hear more on that subject. And if you'd like to comment on what you've heard so far, you can head over to the Manx Radio Facebook page. 7 minutes past 5. Now, the Chief Executive of Manx Care says it's disappointing to hear an MHK describe the Healthcare Board's cuts as holding a gun to the head of government. This was a comment from Douglas South member Claire Christian, who made the remark after Manx Care announced a series of changes to its services in a bid to reduce its £16.8 million projected overspend. Here is CEO's Theresa Cope's response.
I'm quite disappointed when I hear comments like that, because I think the language is really unfortunate. And in essence, Manx Care gave a very detailed briefing to all Tynwald members on the 5th of February, which really explained in some detail the gap between the funding formula recommended by Sir Jonathan Michaels and what we were actually getting in terms of settlement, and also understanding some of our cost base. So essentially the financial impact of 2 consecutive years of 6% pay awards. And each year our pay award at 6% is costing us around £8 to £9 million per year. What we'd seen in terms of inflationary impact on healthcare consumables, drugs, and indeed the contracts that we commission other providers to deliver on behalf of Manx Care, including those on island, but also our off-island partners.
Now, you mentioned there that you did speak to Tynwald members in February ahead of the budget going through. Are you surprised then to see that these issues are coming up now, so far down the road?
I guess if Manx Care had not been forecasting sort of the overspend, these questions probably wouldn't have arisen. But, you know, the point I really wanted to make was that information was made available. It is there for all of the numbers there to be scrutinised, for any questions to be asked. And it was really important that there was a collective understanding of that context at the start of the year. You know, I think it's obviously when we reported as an organisation our level of forecast overspend, we forecast in a way that we don't actually reflect in our forecast full delivery of our savings until we are sure they are going to be delivered. So that £16.8 million overspend was worst case scenario. And the next sentence when that was announced at the board is that £11 million at that point in time of those savings had been identified. So the gap is actually smaller. It's definitely, we will not end the year with a £16.8 million gap.
That is the Chief Executive of Manx Care, Teresa Cope. You can find out more about that story at manxradio.com. We're going to stay with the health theme, though. It's just gone 5:10 because new figures have been published by the Health Minister, revealing the number of people attending the Accident and Emergency Department at Nobles Hospital is on the rise. Siobhan Fletcher is with me. She is known as the fount of all knowledge when it comes to figures. Siobhan, just first of all, why have these figures been released now?
Well, it's all part of a Tynwald written question, Beth. So Douglas North MHK John Wannenberg asked Laurie Hooper how many attendances there have been at A&E each month from September 2021 to date, broken down by under and over 18s. So obviously we don't have the first 9 months of 2021 or the last 3 of this year, considering they've not happened yet. So we've compared January to September this year with the same period in 2022 and 2023.
So what can you tell us then that those numbers show?
So the breakdown shows that between the 1st of January and the 30th of September this year, there have been 34,687 attendances at A&E. That's 466 more than the same period last year and 2,800 more than in 2022.
So, of course, what we don't know, I suppose, is the reason for that. There could be a myriad of reasons. Is this increase, you mentioned for under and over 18s, is this increase seen across both adults and children?
Yeah, so in the first 9 months of 2022, 5,705 kids attended. That went up to 6,032 in 2023, and this year it's hit 6,149. In terms of adults, there were 26,182 in 2022. 28,189 last year and 28,538 this year.
OK, so as I said, you're pretty good with your figures there. That's a lot to take in. We're obviously talking about between January and September here. What would you say we are expecting to see the overall year looking like?
Well, if it continues on trend, then yes, there'll be more attendee numbers for this year as a whole compared to the previous two. So basically, in 2022, 7,923 under 18s and 35,148 adults attended A&E. That equals 43,068 in total. In 2023, that went up to basically over 8,000 under 18s and over 37,000 adults. That equaled 45,771. So you got a jump of a couple thousand there. And we're already at 34,687 this year, which is above the equivalent time periods in the last 2 years. And if that's a lot of figures for everyone, they're all at the website.
Yeah, go and have a look at manxradio.com. That is a lot to take in. But this is information that has been published by the Health Minister, and no doubt there will be more questions to come about this. Siobhan, thank you very much indeed. You're listening to Update. It's 13 minutes past 5. Let's turn our attention to business then. The Isle of Man Steam Packet in the past few minutes has announced a new senior leadership team, which it says will help guide the ferry operator into a new chapter. Now, this team, headed up by the Managing Director Brian Thompson, will include 4 key heads of departments, and 3 of those have already been filled. Head of Customer Experience Seamus Byrne, Head of Human Resources Ethel Doherty and Head of Operations James Royston. The remaining position, they say, will be filled by the end of the year. And the Steam Packet in a media release says these appointments come at a critical time as the company continues to listen to customer feedback and make strategic improvements, particularly around fares and the customer experience, they say, to secure the long-term prosperity of the island. And as we know, earlier this month, the ferry operator announced a strategic reset of its fare system. That was part of efforts, they say, to make ferry travel more affordable, accessible and transparent. Among the changes coming in from the 24th of October, children will travel for free, and there will also be a 10% reduction in so-called flexi fares. Well, the stock market report is brought to us by Ramsey Crookall, and tonight they say that UK and European stocks gained, taking cues from positive momentum stateside as traders looked ahead to a busy week of earnings. The US dollar hovered near recent highs as investors digested China's weekend stimulus announcements that some found disappointing, while the euro extended its fall ahead of a central bank meeting this week. Oil prices fell after data showed China's inflation rate declined and a lack of clarity over the country's economic stimulus plans stoked fears about fuel demand in the world's biggest crude importer. And gold prices steadied amid a risk of mood driven by an underwhelming China fiscal stimulus, and investors awaiting comments from the US Federal Reserve officials for hints on its interest rate outlook. We're looking at the commodities. Gold finished off 0.42% at $2,645. Brent off 1.77 at $77.28. At the close, the FTSE 100 was up 0.37% at 8,284. And the latest from the Dow Jones a short time ago, it was trading up 0.27% at 42,980. And the Nasdaq was up 0.75% at 18,480.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crook all later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m, is it?
2:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, there's nothing from the police about any specific issues on the roads. I know there's been a bit of a backlog, but hopefully the traffic lights around the North Quay area will have gone by now. So hopefully your drive home that way should be okay. All looking okay down at the steam packet, and the airport looking good as well. If you'd like the full list of what's happening around the island roadworks wise, just go to manxradio.com and click on our traffic and travel hub.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with
Quayside.
It's 16 and a half minutes past 5. We're going to stay with the theme of health tonight because more than half of the general practitioners contracted by Manx Care to provide general medical services do so on a part-time basis. Now, these figures were provided to us here at Manx Radio following a request to the health body, and they show 15 are classed as full-time and 31 as part-time. This report comes from Simon Richardson.
Full-time work for GPs in general practice is currently classed as 8 sessions. Less than 8 sessions is referred to as part-time. Previously, a standard session was 4 hours, but due to increasing demand, the time spent per session has been steadily rising. The NHS standard for full-time work is 37.5 hours, but due to increased time spent per session, the BMA defines full-time as 9 sessions. General practices are businesses whose services are contracted to Manx Care to provide general medical services. Most practices are run by a GP partnership who work together and pool resources such as other clinical staff. GP partners are jointly responsible for meeting the requirements set out in the contract for their practice. Manx Care says that with a significant proportion of GPs having childcare or other family responsibilities, many now choose to work part-time. Additionally, some GPs will have extra responsibilities outside of the practice, for example, providing clinical expertise on Manx Care committees. Also, some GPs work for meds on evenings and weekends. Time spent in this employment being recorded separately.
Simon Richardson reporting. 18 minutes past 5. Let's go to the sports news now and say good evening to Darren Timpson.
Good evening, Beth. Starting with FC Isle of Man, Ravens boss Paul Jones has said he can't wait to have a full week of training sessions as his side will no longer have midweek fixtures. FC Isle of Man beat Paddingham 2-1 with 10 men at the weekend, but they won't play again until next Saturday, where they'll take on Longridge Town away. Jones says he's looking forward to training with his full squad.
We've not really had a Tuesday, Thursday training week since the start of the season. You know, we've kind of not worked on anything new. We've not had time, and I know a lot of teams at our level are like that. So, you know, we're really looking forward to being able to work with the group on a Tuesday and Thursday night. You know, hopefully we don't have too many postponements on Saturdays. So it's between now and the rest of the season, we need to get better at being us, and that's the focus. And you know, we've got players who are rested and recovered because we've used the group differently to how we did last year. So yeah, we're really excited to get working together again and get going and put in another strong performance against Longridge on Saturday.
Ravens manager Paul Jones. Sticking with football, Ayr moved up to first in the Canada Life Premier League after they beat Foxdale 4-2 on Saturday, while Peel lost 2-1 to Corinthians. The win for Corinthians means they have moved up to second in the table, but Peel still have a game in hand on the Braddon side. On to rugby, Douglas failed to back up their victory last time out as they were comfortably beaten 50-21 by Sandbach in the Regional 2 Northwest. Meanwhile, Vagabonds' losing streak continues as they were dispatched by De La Salle 57-21 in the Cunties 3 AMD Lancs Cheshire. However, Vagabonds ladies were able to win their game at the weekend as they beat Eccles 22-7. In hockey, Backers A beat Vikings A 5-1 in a top-of-the-table clash to continue their perfect start to the season. Meanwhile, Valkers A also won at the weekend and the two sides remain level in the league table at 8 points each. Elsewhere, Manx professional boxer Jamie Devine extended his unbeaten start to his professional career on Sunday. Devine beat Lithuanian boxer Simas Velasinas at the Grand Central Hall in Liverpool by a point score of 40-36 to make it 5 wins out of 5. And lastly, Ireland cyclist Lizzie Holden has extended her contract by UAE team ADQ. This means the rider will compete for the side for the 2025 season. Speaking on the extension, Holden has said she is grateful for the team that they have given her another chance.
Darren, thank you very much indeed. You're listening to Update here on Manx Radio. It's just gone 5:20. Now, it's just weeks away until Lockie Kirk returns home here to the Isle of Man. The 20-year-old has been receiving treatment at a rehab centre following an incident in 2022, and we're told he's doing well and he's really excited to come back. In preparation, the family has launched one last call for help with work outside the property to be done and for the installation of a ramp that Lockie can use to enter and exit his home in his wheelchair. Chanel has been talking to Lockie's dad, Daniel, and also Jonathan Neen, the project manager for Lockie.
His walking's coming on. Just something's clicked the last week and his steps are much better, but he's a long way from walking on his own at the moment. But no, he's doing really well.
Any idea when he could be coming home?
There's talk about the end of the month, so in a few weeks. We're not quite sure. We're just trying to pin them down on a date where we can start life as we know it.
Jonathan, you've been overseeing this project for nearly 2 years now. How's that been going?
With the help of the Isle of Man building community and the construction sector of the Isle of Man, suppliers, everyone who's chipped in has been absolutely fantastic. What we really need help with is the external works. We need a groundwork contractor to come in, do some excavating, reduce digging and lay concrete and ideally tarmac to the driveway and form the ramps. This way obviously Lockie can come home when he's home in a few weeks' time. He'll be able to get out of the van, into his wheelchair and be able to be pushed into the house very simply. I'd plea to any groundwork contractor out there who can help us within the next few weeks if possible to come forward, give us a message on the Facebook site.
Dan, if I can come back to you, when you walk through and when you see the work that's been done, what goes through your mind?
Just very, very grateful, and the standard it's been done at has been second to none really. There's going to be no snagging list, and it's just been done well, and it's humbling, very humbling.
It is a few weeks. How excited is he to come home?
Very, very excited to come home. We know this because he's ringing us a lot more throughout the day. So we're getting 3 or 4 phone calls throughout the day, whereas normally we might get one in the afternoon or evening. But now he's on the phone a lot to a lot of people, a lot of his friends.
Oh, that is Lockie Kirk's dad, Daniel. We also heard from Jonathan Neen, who has headed up the project Lockie for Lockie's return over here to the Isle of Man. You can find a video on Manx Radio website and also our Facebook page as well. But what a journey that family has been on. If you are able to help them with this last little push, I know they would appreciate it so much. All the details you can find, as I say, on our website. 5:23. Now, here's an interesting initiative which is hoping to help emergency services on the Isle of Man respond to call-outs more quickly. It's called Project Doorstep, and basically what they're doing is they're asking residents to submit the what 3 words location of your home to the joint control room. And what they'll be able to do then is add them to a database which will be used by all the blue light services. Nick Kaiser is an operator there, and he's the one that came up with this idea.
A lot of people have heard about what 3 words. In the Isle of Man, we run a system which I started about 18 months ago now, and it's called Project Doorstep. So what we're asking for is go on to what 3 words, find your house on the map, and if you can find the square which contains your front door, email those 3 words to us, and then we can add it onto our system. so that when we need to dispatch an ambulance or police out to you or fire, we already have that information of where your front door is, and it helps us get the services to your address quicker.
So you're sort of creating a database almost of those and asking people to help you with that?
Yeah. When we put your address in on the computer to send out the services to you, it will pop up and say, what 3 words, Project Doorstep, and it will give us your 3 words so that we can pass that on to the ambulance crew who have the computer terminal in their vans, and then they can put it in and they get the map which shows exactly where you are. It makes it faster for the ambulances to go to you rather than them getting to the end of the road and going, we're slightly lost, where do we go? Do we go left? Do we go right? And it speeds up the transition of them going from us to you.
It's a massive project. What made you want to take that on?
It was just something I had one day that I thought that would make a difference to us, because we often get asked, where is the property we're going to? And with the introduction of what 3 words, it just made sense that we've got the capability to add data into our system, and the what 3 words was ideal. And it also helps if you have it on your phone for when you go walking or mountain biking. If anything happens, you can open that app and get those what 3 words, and it enables us to get to you quicker.
That is Nick Kayser, who's an operator at the Joint Control Room here in Douglas, who was talking to Amy about this project, Project Doorstep. So as he said, all you need to do is download the What 3 Words app. And as he was saying, it's useful not only, of course, from an emergency services point of view, particularly if you have to phone the emergency services. It's usually in a very stressful time, isn't it? So if you can cut down on the amount of information that you have to pass on, that'll be hugely, hugely helpful. But What 3 Words is also great as well for just finding your way around, and you'll see this on many places now, that they have the What 3 Words locations. So it does away with the, shouting at people if you're the co-driver in a car trying to find the right area. So a really interesting project, and we'll be hearing much more about the Joint Control Room in the coming weeks. But that is all from Update Tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Much more about all tonight's top stories as ever at manxradio.com. And if there's something you'd like to talk about, you'd like to get off your chest, don't forget you can always join us on the Man in Line, or if you think of something that you'd like to say about any of the stories you've been hearing about, you can phone our out of hours line. That's 682 631. Be a busy day tomorrow. We have the return of Tynwald, so you'll be able to hear that on AM and DAB, and also online at manxradio.com as well. The members will be getting back in their seats from 10 a.m. tomorrow, and as ever we will have full coverage of that. Coming up next tonight on Manx Radio, it's Agenda with Phil Gaughan, who'll be looking ahead to the Tynwald sitting. Then it's Greatest Hits Live with Chris Kinley here from 6. Time for Brass from 9 with Ian Cottier. Then Dave Moore is with you from 10 with After Hours. Enjoy your evening, and we'll be back tomorrow at 5 with more from Update.